All right, today we are in the operations space, my favorite, and we have an awesome caller question about productivity. So I brought in an expert to give some advice. We're going to talk about her situation and productivity hacks, because I use hacks in a very loose sense, because I don't feel like there's a shortcut to having more time. It just doesn't exist. But I feel like we're going to get some really good tips and tricks and strategies to maximize our most valuable resource, which is time. All right. So today we have Brittany Dixon on the line. Brittany is a business systems strategist and host of the Productivity Podcast. Brittany helps highly driven visionary entrepreneurs implement day-to-day operations management, project management, systems and processes, and simple strategy to free up time to do big things in their own zone of genius. Whether she is teaching entrepreneurs simple strategies to reduce overwhelm in their business, Brittany leverages her super organizer powers to grow businesses so that they can sail and soar. When she's not working with her clients or being active in her productivity pod community, she loves camping with her family and making bougie charcuterie boards. It sounds like we need to have a happy hour, make some cool boards, and talk about all things productivity. So Brittany, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Let us know, how you work, about your communities, and all the things.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is great. And the intro was awesome as well. But yeah, so I live outside of Columbus, Ohio. I've got twin girls at home. I run a business full time. We're actually contemplating living in a camper because we love camping so much. So that's super fun. But yeah, as far as the business stuff goes, I'm literally on a mission to help business owners work smarter, not harder. I have seen too many business owners either quit, throw in the towel, hit a ceiling because the back end operations is what holds them back. None of us really started a business to run a business. We started a business because we're really good at something and we knew we could help people and also make money doing it, but we still have to do all this stuff in the back end. So I really help business owners to streamline all of that, the project management, the task management, like you were talking about, productivity hacks, and really just trying to help people work more, do more, and work less, essentially. So I was an event planner. And then when I started my business, I actually was a home organizer. So I organized houses, and now I organize businesses. So I'm just that weirdo type A with color-coded binders and labels and sticky notes. And my friends made fun of me, and now I made a business out of it. So here we are.
That is awesome. I love that. And I find your background so interesting because I actually got my bachelor's degree in event management. And it's so rare that I meet someone, especially in the online space, that is someone, events is so, I don't know, I guess social compared to me. I mean, I spend all day alone in my office talking to myself and my dog and other people on occasion, which is super, super nice. But, events is one of those things that's just very chaotic.
It's a lot. So, yeah. I thought I wanted to be a wedding planner. I knew I was this organized type A person. And then I saw weddings and parties, and I was like, that sounds like a really cool job. And I got into it. I actually interned for a wedding planner, and then I worked in the restaurant catering space. And what I realized is I loved all the back end stuff, but I did not love nights and weekends and crazy brides and families. I'm I'm a behind the scenes kind of girl. I'm going to let somebody else handle the rest of that.
No, I'm exactly the same. I'm aging myself a little bit, but when I first entered school and chose, I was one of those people too who waited until they already did all the classes I possibly could until I had to pick something. So I was like, what do I like to do? I love going, to parties and music festivals and, club nights and stuff. And then by the time I was a senior in events, I was like, I am not staying up past 9. It's not happening. I have to get there at 9. That's just not me anymore. But I feel I hate looking at my degree hanging up a lot of times because I'm like, wow, that thing is just collecting dust. But I think a lot about, the skills that I took from the chaos that it takes, you have to be able to withstand a certain amount of chaos in order to do events. And I loved, when I implemented something with events where everyone is on the same page. There's little to no snafus happening the day of, so yeah, I feel like there's valuable parts boards, especially.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
And my career has actually kind of came full circle because now in this like business strategy and like productivity space, I've actually worked with event planners because I know how chaotic it is without systems.
Yes.
So I'm like, I'm going to now help you put some systems in place because it'll make your life so much easier.
Yes.
Yeah. And I loved it. I really did. But then I had kids. I've got twin girls at home. So like that is not sustainable for a family to be able to work like nights and weekends. And I did end up getting an event planning job that was more like the 9 to 5 type of thing. And like I would hand stuff off to the operations people, but it was very stressful. Like I was working like 50 hours a week. It was a lot of stress. And I'm like, I think there's an easier way.
Yes. Or something different, a little bit different, but
yeah. And I actually, funny thing is I accidentally became an entrepreneur because I actually got fired from that job because I was pushing boundaries. I'm like, we should do it this way. And they were a super old school corporate company. And they're like, no, we've never done that before. And I'm like, yeah, we have to try new things. And they're like, you're a lot of work. We're going to find someone else. And I'm like, all right. So, blessing in disguise because now it's the best thing ever. But I never in a million years thought I was going to start a business being an organizer of any kind. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love that. I mean, I definitely stumbled on in too. And I was working catering at night. And then I was working a 9 to 5 in a like nightclub office, which I do not recommend to anybody. There are some characters in that industry. And then I would come home, know that there's an event going on at the venue. And I'm like, I can't sleep, even though I'm not there working it because I'm like, no one better mess this up for me. I better walk back in tomorrow.
1,000%. I was in the restaurant catering space. So like, and we did big banquets and stuff and I would leave and I'm like, okay, this is what needs to happen. This is who you need to talk to. And I would leave and I'm like, oh God, did they do it? Are they going to be mad tomorrow that it didn't happen how it was supposed to? I'm like, oh yeah, I totally feel you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, that's so interesting. I love that. I rarely relate in the background, but no, that's awesome. And I feel like there's so many skills that you can pull in, especially, kind of being a ringleader and
for sure.
And then,
I think even now I run events, right? Like I have events inside of my community. We have like happy hours and networking events and it's different because it's virtual, but a lot of the same skills I had to use kind of come into play. So it's really great.
That's awesome. And I'm also obsessed with the home edit and all of those Marie Kondo shows. So I love that. I thought about hiring like an actual because I can organize, other people's businesses. I can sometimes organize my own thoughts, rarely, but my home is kind of like, okay, let's shove everything into the garage.
And I actually, when I started the business, I was doing that for people. And honestly, I probably would have still been doing that if I knew how to run a business because I actually started searching for coaches. And when I searched for a coach, I found her and she was like, you could do this for businesses and work online and like remote. And I was like, wait, what? So that like hiring her literally kind of went in a whole different direction of when I started my business because I probably would have organized houses for years because I loved it. But when I found out I could get in the online space and impact so many more people and also work from my laptop and not have to like drive anywhere, I was like, I'm in, sign me up.
Yes. Oh my God. That sounds like a perfect fit. We're going to talk about all those things. I need to know how to get to inbox zero. I need to know how to make my calendar not be like a rainbow of meetings and thoughts and randomness. So we'll get into all that. But first, I would love to know how you're working with clients right now. Who exactly, are you going after? What kind of clients you typically take on? And what point do they typically reach you? Like what point of chaos?
So I tend to work with mainly service providers. I don't do a ton with product-based businesses. Not that I can't, because what I do is kind of universal across the board. I think there's just so many more other pieces to that I haven't learned because I'm in the service side. So like inventory and like products, I'm like, well, that's a whole other set of systems that I am not familiar with. So I do tend to stick with service-based. I work with a lot of coaches and consultants in the online space with some of our online programs, but I actually do some stuff with brick and mortar too. So I've got some dentists and plumbing department. It's kind of all over the board. It's really funny. I tried to go all in on a niche and it just keeps expanding and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to fight it. We have a couple different ways that we work with people. We have we've got a membership called Productivity on Purpose. So that's like our accountability group where essentially we have co-working Monday through Friday. And then you actually fill out a focus form so that our coaches can check in on you, make sure you're getting stuff done because I think the hardest thing for people is like staying accountable to the goals they've set. So we've got that. We also have a program called Hustle to Flow. It's more of like that done with you kind of group coaching where we teach you all the systems and you set them up and then can come in for coaching and help with anything. And then we do our spa VIP days, which are systems, processes, and automation VIP days. And essentially, this is where I'm coming in and actually diving into your business. We're setting up your Asana or a CRM for you or doing some sort of cleanup as far as systems go. So really just trying to streamline and find ways for efficiency. So kind of like the coaching done for you. We've got a little bit of everything. And then, of course, we've got the podcast and the community for people who are just looking for some tips.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's an option for everybody. I need to get in there. Well, I need to get everywhere.
But
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, staying accountable is one of those things. You know, we can all get a clean slate once in a while or after, a couple of years, and after it gets to a point that's unmanageable, and then keeping up with it and maintaining it is a whole another part. So
yeah. And I think that productivity has this like stigma around it that it's like just checking off boxes and like getting stuff done off your to-do list. But we called it productivity on purpose because we want to make sure you're actually doing things that move the needle forward and not just like random stuff that's not helping you in the business. So there's actually like a monthly planning call because I feel like there's so many entrepreneurs that they're just kind of winging it. And we want to help kind of guide you through a plan and make sure you're doing stuff on purpose instead of like just being busy, because just being busy is not going to get you very far.
Of course. And especially being busy with things that aren't the main money makers or even what you like doing. Yep. Because I work in the system space and kind of, productivity, I guess, but I'm more implementing technology and systems to eliminate the length of the to-do list and kind of leaning on technology. So I'm more of an implementer, but I love talking to you because I feel like you have a lot of tips on the other side, the more mindset, conceptual side of productivity, because, there's only so many boxes that you can check with technology and tools and systems. And a lot of people, like myself and kind of everybody are kind of susceptible to what's the next like piece of technology that's going to make my life easier? Let me go spend all this time now installing something or trying to learn a new thing, or, it's that shiny object syndrome that gets all of us at one point or another.
It's real. And I think with tools, that's probably the biggest thing that people get shiny object syndrome with. They're like, wait, but my friend's using this. Should I switch? My other friend's using this. And it's just this whole thing. And what I like to tell people is that they're all competing with each other. Like, let's be real. They're all the project management tools are trying to be the same. And it's only a matter of time before these bells and whistles come over here. So if you're in one, just stay in one, please.
Yes.
There's always ways to improve the one that you're using. Now, there are cases where maybe you've outgrown it or it actually does not work for you that we may need to switch. But I think a lot of times people use that as kind of an excuse. Like they feel like they're busy because they're like, oh, I'm switching systems and I'm getting this all set up. But in reality, they're actually just kind of like procrastinating the money-making things, the things that they need to be working on. And if you do that too much, you waste a lot of time and a lot of money, and you leave a lot of money on the table doing that. So yeah, definitely the shiny object syndrome is real with tools and all the other things.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, switching people, from software to software is I think should only really take place if the actual business is changing in a major way too. Yeah. There's signs that we can talk about when it's time to implement something, when it's time to shift, but usually that's not the case. Usually it's like, okay, maybe just take a big picture.
Normally, no.
Get a second set of eyes on your stuff and then we'll decide. But that's awesome. So I feel like this is a great spot to kind of jump in, see what our caller has to say, what's going on, and go from there. How does that sound?
Yeah. Sounds great.
All right. Let's hear it.
Hi, Alina. My name is Melissa, and I have a question today about, how to not be so busy all the time. I started my coaching business about 2 years ago and had no idea what I was doing at the time, but somehow I've gained a lot of traction. I transitioned to being a full-time solopreneur a year ago, and although it's been an amazing ride, I'm getting to the point where my schedule is a mess, and some days I feel like I'm running on fumes. I'd love to see more client calls on my schedule because coaching is what I truly love doing. But with all the other things that need to happen in order to market, reach new people, and keep the back office running, I just don't know where to start or how to fix this. Burnout is real, and I can't seem to find the time to strategically clean up my schedule. I would love some tips on how to do all the things and not lose even more of my mind in the process of refining my business practices. Thanks. Can't wait to hear what you think.
Sounds very relatable.
It is.
Yes. I mean, first off, I just want to say we all get into the headspace where we're like, I don't know what I'm doing. That doesn't really go away. But
it doesn't. Nope.
It doesn't.
Not at all.
It doesn't go away. After 2 years, I mean, you've been doing this successfully for 2 years. You definitely know a thing or two. If you're still full-time after 2 years, then whatever you're doing is working and you know more than you think you do.
Yes.
Yeah. And that feeling will come back, but
it will. Yeah. No,
obviously
there's
doing
just
something
different,
right.
it's just different levels each time, right?
Yes.
Every time you shift or level up or something new comes or you're doing something different, like every time you have those pivots, you're going to have the feeling that you have no idea what you're doing. And sometimes you want to burn it all down because that's real.
Yeah. Yes. There are those nights on the bathroom floor crying, but there's always something good afterwards. Yep. It's a roller coaster for everybody. So you are not alone there.
No,
and
definitely not.
Growing quickly is also, something, I guess, losing track and kind of feeling like you're in a state of chaos is something that does come with growing quickly. That's just kind of the way it is. And that's what I've always seen. So I feel like at that point, it's time to step back and I feel like I reached this point too, around the same time, maybe like 2 years after I went full time where I was at the point where I was like looking at job applications and things. Cause I was like there. I don't know if I
that's
can
real.
Yeah. I mean, and then I'd be like, no, okay, wait. Like this is the most I've ever made. And like, I get to choose. There comes a point where you're like, am I really choosing this? Because this doesn't feel good. And that's when I think, you need to call in the people to help you clean it up and have an objective look because, I feel like all of us are so inside, especially solopreneurs are very like in their own business and without, a community of people around that you can relate to. Because I mean, it's hard to, especially coaching and super, businesses that are almost 100% remote and virtual and you're in charge of the entire show. It's hard. I mean, my family barely even knows what I do. And my friends are like,
right?
When the pandemic hit, all of my friends, especially my event friends, were like, wait, what are you doing again? Like,
yes.
So
oh my gosh, I can so relate to that. No one in my like real community space knew what I was doing. And I was like, oh, I have an online business. They're like, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, I have a business and it's online. And they're like, yeah, I still don't know. And then the pandemic hit and they're like, oh, I want one of those. I'm like, yeah, you can't just, it just doesn't magically poof out of thin air, right?
Right. Yes, I created this on purpose. But then, all of us get to a point where it's like, did I do this on purpose? Because I hate myself for it.
Roller coaster never goes away. Like it is, even when you're super successful and you have a team and like you can start handing stuff off, there are roller coaster days, there are roller coaster weeks. And again, I wanted to burn my business down about a year ago, which is crazy because I'm like a successful 6-figure business with a team and all the things. And I was still like, I'm not doing this anymore. And everyone's like, no, you can't quit. And I'm like, I'm very close. I'm very close.
I'm on the edge.
So there's a lot of mindset stuff that goes in for sure that you've got to keep yourself on track there.
Yes, for sure. It gets better. It gets better and a community helps. And hopefully we can help a little bit and go into some of these issues because been there and seen it many, many times. I mean, maybe mindset is where we start. I would love to know kind of your philosophy on productivity in general and, things to kind of a mindset to kind of settle into. I guess first, like when it's time for a big shift, especially when I want to introduce something new or block off time to really clean up that time is hard to find. And then I'm just like stuck in this loop of like, I need to get this stuff done before I can focus on like the chaos that only affects me.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing from a mindset perspective and just like a big picture is like constantly going back to your why and like your mission and your vision. So if you haven't revisited that in a while because you're so busy, I urge you to take the time to do that, because that's what's going to actually push you forward to keep you going when you want to quit. Because if I didn't have that like vision and like, I knew that I could impact a ton of people. I knew that I could help my family. I knew that it would allow us to travel. Like if I didn't have all of that in mind when I was having that like down, we'll call it a month, I think it was like 3 months, but when I was having that downtime, like I wouldn't have kept pushing through and I would have quit. So I feel like that's a huge piece of it, is like, you've got to stop and be like, okay, why am I actually doing this? Does this still fit my lifestyle? Is this lighting me up? Do I love the part of it that I started the business for? Again, we didn't start our business to do all this other stuff, but the part you started it for, do you still love that? And if so, you just have to keep going. So the other piece of that is having, like you said, community and support and a mentor. You have to have somebody in your corner. And I feel like especially during pivots and shifts, having a coach or a mentor is like, it's a non-negotiable, because you've got to have somebody to like help pull you through a lot of those things. So obviously like personal development stuff too, which is tough when you don't have time to kind of fit that in. But if you can fit in podcasts and listen to this, because you've got to stay in this like state of mind that's like positive instead of staying on the bottom of the roller coaster, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. That calendar can fill up real quick. But I feel like, revisiting kind of your foundations. I think when you go in to do kind of an audit of like what actually is taking up my days, like, you know, I feel like you can kind of point out the things that are servicing your vision, you know, and why you're doing what you're doing. And then pick out the like nice to have when I have time things. And, you know, maybe separate those two so that, you know, you prioritize what you need to get done, but still have room to breathe and make decisions and be creative and evolve the business. Because, you know, especially in a state of burnout, that's when even more time gets wasted, where you could be scaling your business and focusing in on that CEO role and, you know, doing it, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to, right?
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah. And I walk through, so you talked about the audit, right? Like that time audit and systems audit are typically one of the first things I do when I work with clients, because you can't fix something that you're not aware of. So if you're going to do a time audit and you see where your time's going, then we can actually take action and start fixing it, right? But if you're like, I have no idea where my time is going, it's going to be really hard for us to like put a system in place to fix that. And I walk through kind of like my days by design method with people, because I think when you're in burnout, you're really only focusing on the business side. You're not focusing on your self-care. You're not focusing on taking lunch. You're not focusing on taking evenings off and weekends off, because you think that I just keep going. If I just keep going, it'll get better. There's always something to do. You literally could work 24/7 and there is still always something to do that you have to do, or things that you want to do. It never goes away. So you really have to start controlling your time. And I always tell people to put lifestyle stuff in first and then business stuff, or else you are going to get burnout. I remember the days when I didn't eat lunch. I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't eat lunch. And then it's like dinner at 7. And I'm like, I don't think I've drank any water today either. Like it gets to that point, right? That you are not taking care of yourself. And that just adds to the cycle of burnout. And then you're not sleeping. And then it's just a bad cycle to get into. So I really urge people to block out lunch on their calendar every day. I urge them to block out, especially if you have an automatic scheduler, block out time. If you don't want to take calls until 10 a.m., block it out so that nobody can get on your calendar before 10 a.m. If you want to take Fridays off, this was one of the biggest shifts for me. I kept telling myself I wanted to take Fridays off. I was like, yeah, I want 3-day weekends. This sounds great. And I would literally get a call scheduled every single Friday. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's fine. Finally, in 2022, I literally blocked out Friday and no one could get on my calendar unless I put them there. It was the greatest thing ever.
Yes,
but
that
it's just
sounds
that
like
one
a great
shift,
idea.
right? The one shift of me going into my calendar and saying like, no one can get in here unless I put them there. Nobody can get on my call until after 10 a.m. Nobody can get on a call until after 4 p.m. And even those small shifts just gave me so much space to breathe that now I was in control of my calendar. Same thing with like stuff you want to do from a personal perspective. We wanted to do board game night with the kids every Thursday, and we weren't doing it because it wasn't on the calendar. Put it on the calendar, and now we do it pretty often. So I think it's just really being super intentional and blocking out that time and knowing that, yes, you may be really, really busy and it feels hard to do that. But if you don't do it, you're going to stay really, really busy and it's never going to get better. So you really have to like step back and take time to be able to make time in the future.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. And I've definitely been there. I feel like I hit that point where I was like, I gotta take some time off and redo my entire business, because I think, things are great now, but back when the pandemic started, that was when I was at my like peak, super peak in terms of like capacity. I live alone. I'm very, very single, and I got nothing to do, so might as well work, right? Like, so, I mean, yeah, I would work over 12 hours every single day. Back then, when the pandemic first started, I was doing like OBM work, online business management. So I was like on retainer with, I think like 15 or 10 to 15 people at a time. Yeah. So I'm running the back end of like 10 different businesses, didn't have time to even think about my own. And that's when I was like, oh my God, okay, we need to do something different here. And then I completely like abandoned all of that. And actually, I won't go into all of that, but it was a painful process. And it did take time, and I had to let a couple clients go to free up that time to even think, which I'm glad I was in a position to do, but it could have been done by just rearranging some things. And taking away some of the things that weren't really serving the purpose and the goal. Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things to think about is that if you keep going at this rate and you're just going to keep pushing, you're going to burn out and quit and be able to help no one. So like, if you don't take the time, like you started this business, I know, for some sort of like bigger purpose. It wasn't just to make money. All of us are heart-centered. Like, we want to change the world. We want to make a huge impact, right? And the thing is that unless you're taking care of yourself and your business, you're going to get to a point that you quit and you're not going to be able to help anyone. So why not take the time now to block out time in your schedule to fix the things and to take a breather, like even just a week, just say, hey, like, I'm not taking calls. I'm not taking clients. I literally just need a breather to go and look at stuff from a high level and say like, okay, this is working. This is not working. This is working. This is not working. I need to give this to someone else. How can I do that? And really just looking at that like 30,000 foot view, because I think we get so in the weeds that we think that that's just how it has to be. And I'm here to tell you, I was in the weeds. It was awful. And then I stopped and fixed it, and now it's so much better. It takes time, right? It's a process. And I think that's another mindset shift, is that we all want stuff to happen like right now. Like, I have this idea, I want to implement it, and I want it to be $1 million thing tomorrow. That's just not the case. And I think that you have to just really enjoy the process and say like, hey, this is happening because bigger stuff's going to happen later, and it's preparing me for that. And I just have to take this time to kind of step back and make sure things are in alignment for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like that's not even a one-time thing either. That has to happen periodically because again, it's a roller coaster and stuff is going to change, and you're going to get the same feelings again if you don't maintain. Yep. But I totally can relate. It is kind of a painful place to be. Yeah. But when you start recognizing that type of pain, then you know it's time again to come back, take some time and really schedule out the important parts, because either you're going to quit or want to, or, you're going to keep going and probably not show up, especially as a coach in this specific space. You're not going to be able to give the quality of service that, you want to, and that you build this business to give. So
One of the other
Yeah.
big things is that I see so many entrepreneurs setting goals, right? They're like, I have these big goals and I have all these amazing things I want to do. And then come January the next year, they're like, I have these big goals and they're the same, right? And what I see it in the space is that you make these goals because everyone tells you have to make goals at the beginning of the year, and you set these things and you do all of this. One, they might be out of alignment because you're trying to do them the same as someone else. Two, you might be just doing it because someone told you to do it. But the whole thing is that goals are awesome. Goals are great, but habits are actually what makes things happen. And unless you put habits on your calendar of doing sales calls and spending time following up with people, and you've got to put admin time on there. The biggest thing I see, especially from a time management standpoint, is that people let their calendar fill up and they don't block off time for prospecting and sales. They don't block off time for admin time. They don't block off time for personal time. So your calendar's full and you still have to do all of that because you're a business owner. So why not block that time out so that you can take less calls, still do all of that stuff, and not work 50 hours a week.
Right.
And that's honestly, that was the biggest shift for me when I took control of my calendar and did that. I put an hour every day for sales and follow-up. I put 2 hours on Monday and 2 hours on Thursday for admin. And you start to see how little time you actually have to take calls or take people, because that stuff still has to happen as a business owner. And until you can get to the point that you can actually outsource, somebody has to do it, and that somebody is probably you if you're a solopreneur. So block the time out so that you're not working 50 hours a week. It's a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I totally agree. All that stuff definitely has to happen, and it shouldn't happen after hours. I had a really hard time saying, like, these are my business hours, especially like during the pandemic. I'm like, the days are blending. I don't know, like,
right.
what I am anymore. But in the middle of it, I was like, no, I need to close this office door and leave everything in here. I'm not going to keep working on the couch while I'm trying to watch Game of Thrones. Like, it doesn't work.
Right.
So, so I feel like, that breathing room is super important. And, I feel like all of us kind of had freedom in mind when we started a business, even if it was started accidentally like mine. But that's what my most valuable, like, thing that I take from my business is the freedom to make decisions. But if you're beholden to all of those things that happen after you get to do the fun part, which is, working with the clients and going on your coaching calls. For me, it's designing websites and setting up systems and implementing and having my hands in stuff. My hands just never touched my own thing. So I didn't go anywhere, but I did have to, like, shift some things into after hours that were more like ideation, and even the time spent, like the downtime, is just as valuable as your working time. I remember, like, last year I went on a vacation with my best friend for 2 weeks, which is like the longest I have left my office in a year. Well, really, since I started the business. And, like, I get nervous leaving my office during the day to run to grab lunch anyway. So but I remember I had, like, a couple, like, web design projects and graphic design, like, big projects that were kind of paused. And then I was going to come back, they were scheduled. It wasn't paused just because I decided to up and leave. But, I came back and I saw where I stopped. And I was like, no, this is ugly. I don't like it anymore. I needed that break to be able to come back and be creative again, because that design sucked. I was like, this is the ugliest thing I think I've ever made.
I mean, to your point, right? Like, being able to show up as your best self as a coach or as an implementer, like, you have to have that space. I can't tell you how many ideas, like, I typically don't work on vacation other than, like, quick checking of email to make sure things are good. But I cannot tell you the amount of ideas that I have implemented that have come from when I was on vacation. And I'm just like, not dealing with the day-to-day. I'm not talking to clients. I'm not talking to my team. I'm not doing tasks. And I'm just, like, being, and, like, all of these, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should do this and I should do this, which is, like, the curse of an entrepreneur, right? It's like, we have so many ideas. It's crazy, but you've got to have that white space. And it's the same on a day-to-day basis, because it's great if you go on a week vacation or a 2-week vacation and you have that, but you've got to have it in the evenings and you've got to have it on the weekends. Like, you've got to have this space to live and have the freedom that you started your business for. Because if not, you work more than if you even worked at a 9 to 5, which is crazy. And you just have to you've got to start blocking that time out. And it sounds really scary when you're in the midst of it. I know it does. It's like, I can't stop. I have too many things going on. But I think one of the biggest things is once you find the actual things, you step back, you find the things that are actually moving the needle forward, and you let go of everything else, things still happen because you're doing the things that move the needle forward, not the random stuff on the back end, right? You get systems in place to help manage that a little bit better. And then you can start hiring people to take some of that on. And it's just, it's a hard process to go through, but taking the time to create systems really does make time for you in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. So what do you think the first step would be? For someone like this whose calendar is so crazy that where's the time to think about this or start?
Yeah, I think it really is just a massive brain dump. I want you to get everything out of your head. All the tasks that are in your head, all the things you're thinking about. Oh my gosh, I have to do this and I need to do this. You have got to get it out and get it on paper, or virtual paper. I use my iPad. And once you do that, I promise you're going to start finding patterns of things, right? So we actually use our BCO method. It stands for Business Development, Client Services, and Operations. Every task that you write down and everything that you write down is going to fall into one of those buckets. So once you can start grouping business development and growth type of things together, client type of things together, and operations types of things together, you can start to see where you're really spending your time. Most of the time we spend a ton in the client space and the operations stuff falls off and we're kind of doing business development, but kind of not, or the roller coaster of sales and clients, right? But you can start to see patterns within those things. And you're like, oh, I don't need to be doing all of this. I can take these tasks and give them to someone else. Or I really need to spend more time on business development because I'm not doing anything when it comes to that. And that's when you can start blocking out time on your calendar for it. Because you're like, I really need to do sales because I need more clients. So block out a time every single day to do follow-ups. So I think a massive brain dump and time audit really is you have to take that first step. And the first thing people say is they're like, I don't have time to do that. But you have to, because again, if you're not aware of where your time is going, it's going to be impossible to fix it. So just keep a notebook with you. Write down how much time things take, write down all the different things that you're doing. If you use some sort of digital task tool, look at all the stuff that you've completed in the past week, because we're humans and typically week over week, they're pretty much the same. We have this routine and it's pretty much, if you look at your calendar for the past 4 weeks, it's probably the same week over week. So you can really start to find patterns and say oh, maybe I could put some business development time on Mondays because I don't take clients, or maybe I can take more clients on Wednesdays because I'm not really doing as much that day. But until you do that audit and that brain dump, it's going to be really hard to kind of start making things work better.
I love the idea of doing a big audit. And yeah, it is hard to find time to kind of even think about it. But, I like to occasionally, when I'm starting to get that tingling sensation of burnout, I like to use a time tracker and log what I'm doing. Because I'm one of those people who, when I have something that I know I need to do, I either pop it into my project management space, in Asana, or I'll just pop a block into my schedule and just type out what I'm supposed to be doing. But I don't really follow it. It's sometimes I use my calendar as a to-do list. I'm kind of a mess, but if I'm really getting to that point where I need to reorganize and just do a whole reset, I will keep a time tracker open on my computer or install a plugin. There's a million now. I forget what the one that I used to use is called. I'll pop it in the show notes. But yeah, just logging your time, even checking your inbox. I am in my inbox, in my email, half the day. And that should not be the case. I have a problem with compulsively checking my email and responding right away to everybody.
Yeah, a lot of us do as entrepreneurs because we think like, oh my gosh, if I don't answer that, my whole business is going to burn down. So I'm here to tell you it's not.
Exciting. Yeah, or I see something. I get excited about everything. So if I see someone brand new in my inbox, I'm like, oh, who are these people? I need to spend 2 hours lightly stalking them. And I'm excited now. So I'm going to like start writing out this huge long email when I'm supposed to like get on a call in 15 minutes or, you know.
So from an email standpoint, one, I will say like, I don't have notifications on my phone for email or really social. I mean, really nothing for that matter, except for like text messages and phone calls. So the notifications thing is huge. So any notifications that you can turn off is great because it's still there when you click it, but you're not seeing that dot and it's not like creating that like, oh gosh, I have to go look at it. So that's huge. I also try not to check my email more than like 2 or 3 times a day. Like I try and go in the morning, do what I need to do, shut it down until afternoon, same thing. And then right before I leave. There's a couple pieces to this. One, most of the time, none of that is like super crucial, right? So like you're going in there, you're getting distracted from whatever you were doing. You have shiny object syndrome, go down a rabbit hole, you're looking at different things, and then you're like, wait, what was I working on? So it's like the number one productivity killer. The other piece of it is boundaries with clients and making sure, especially if you're still one of those people that works at 8 p.m. at night, if I ever send an email at 8 p.m., I schedule it for 8 a.m. the next day because I do not want to condition my clients to be like, oh, if I email her at 8 p.m., she's going to answer me. So there's some boundary things to that too, of like conditioning your clients to, and just people in general that are emailing you, like that you're going to get back to them in a certain amount of time and it's not going to be instant and those types of things. But I think notifications is huge. And then really unsubscribing from a lot of things.
Yep.
I just did a massive unsubscribe. I'm like, I'm not reading any of this. And if I'm not reading it, it's not giving me value. Why am I still letting it come into my inbox? So it's really that just like digital detox of like getting rid of as much digital clutter as possible for sure.
I love that. And, you know, I actually like 2 weeks ago, I just got overwhelmed with all of the newsletters, you know, every time I have a meeting with someone, you know, some people do this and I don't particularly love it and I don't do it, but, you know, you're on their email list now. If they've spoken to me or, you know, we've interacted in some capacity, they get my email somehow and they pop it into their marketing thing. And I hate that. But what I actually ended up setting up was a dedicated inbox. So I have a million inboxes for different things, but I have my main one that's like just one-on-one, me and the client. I have my team inbox and I have, you know, an inbox for our social media service that our social media clients communicate because I don't need to be the one looking at that. Someone else can fill me in if I need to jump in. But, you know, I also set up a free Gmail account that doesn't even use my domain. That's just for collecting business development newslettery stuff that I love. I love to get, and I want to stay in the loop, especially in the marketing space and in, you know, kind of industries that change a lot. And, you know, I need to be the expert and the one in the know if there's like a new feature or something so that I can answer the questions as they come up. But that's not how I want to be spending my time during the day. If I'm sitting on my patio with a glass of wine at the end of the day, playing with my dog, scroll through that inbox and pick up a few little nuggets there, but it doesn't need to be in my main client inbox because those are my priorities. So I kind of separated my inboxes. And then, you know, also back when I was in my virtual assistant OBM days, I saw a lot of super successful business owners that had like normal promotional emails in their inbox that I was having to manage. And I'm like, can we scooch this I mean, they were getting ads for like shopping stuff. And then I'm there like wasting my time, like looking through like trending skirts or something, you know, whatever it is. So I'm like, okay, no. When you buy something online, can you do it from another account?
It's so crazy. Even my like high-end consulting clients that I work with that have teams and like the digital clutter and like digital disorganization of even just your workspace when you get online It's such a problem. I mean, there's literally a stat out there that says we spend 12 and a half hours a week searching for things, whether that is
That's like a
color
whole
codes,
day.
PDFs, JPEG images, Zoom links, files, like all of this stuff, right, is coming in at you 24/7. And if you do not have a system to organize that and to keep it really, really streamlined, you're wasting our time looking for stuff, right? Like how many of us have went to our, log into a software. We log into the software. It's like, oh, your password's wrong. And you're like, oh crap. All right, let me go reset my password. So then you go into your email to find that email to reset your password, but something else grabs your attention. So you go down there and then you go back to log into the thing and the thing expired. Like that is like 5 minutes alone, right?
Right.
So
or same thing on the phone.
think about
when they send a code to your phone, I'm like, ooh, like, oh my gosh, I have like 25 Instagram comments to respond to. Like, I have like, oh, wait, okay, now the code's expired. Like, now I have to do over. Yeah, like, I mean, it's all
so
the
think about doing
screens
that
are
for
on.
5 different softwares, right? Like you did that for one and then another, and then it's just like this distraction constantly. So if you don't have a really organized digital workspace with something like LastPass for your passwords and your bookmarks for all the different softwares you need to get into, like if you don't have that, it can be so time consuming and frustrating when you're trying to do your work and you have to like go down a rabbit hole every time to go find something. So I think the email side of it, the digital Google Drive type of stuff is a big problem. Like just digital clutter in general, if you don't have a system for it, it's really, really hard to manage the day to day because it just keeps coming in. Like it never stops.
Right. Of course. Yeah, I love that. And my Google Drive is like my favorite place to be. I mean, everything is in there. And I think that having stuff like passwords and file, I mean, I keep everything in Google Drive. That's just like my cloud of choice. But I mean, like I was just telling you, Brittany, when we hopped on, my MacBook had a tragic death yesterday. And I'm not even concerned. I mean, I knew it was time. So I'm not heartbroken because I have all my stuff organized in an online location that my next computer that I get tomorrow or whenever, is going to have everything the exact way that I had it before.
And I tell people that all the time, like having Chrome or whatever Chrome is my favorite. I feel like it's the most flexible, but that's your digital workspace, right? You're opening all your tabs in there. You're opening your softwares, you're checking your email, like everything happens there. And if you have your Chrome profile set up that's super, super organized and you don't keep files on your desktop, you put them in the cloud, and you don't keep files on your laptop, you put them in the cloud and have a process for that. All my devices could die today. Now, I would hope that doesn't happen because I'm going to have to pay Apple like an arm and a freaking leg. But if they all died today, I could still log into Google Chrome and have access to literally everything and not miss a beat. I have my tasks, I have my passwords, I have my files, I have my email. Like I have literally everything. But so many people, I think, work on different devices and save stuff to different devices. And one, it's decision fatigue because you're like, wait, where did I put that? And then two, if anything dies, you don't have it and you've kind of got to start all over. So that digital workspace and like being really, really organized, I mean, aside from the wasting 12 and a half hours a week, it saves your sanity and helps you actually be more productive and get a lot done.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, another little benefit that I thought of as you were talking is that when you're ready to bring in team members, guess what's already all organized and accessible? Like stuff isn't going to be hard to find. You're not going to be spending all of that onboarding time organizing it. It's already there and ready to get shared and in an easy way. Also, that's not taking up or compromising the technology that your help might have, your support team might already have. They'll be able to access everything on whatever they use. I feel like that's a really good use of time is to just do a refresh and an audit. Yeah. The schedule audit is one thing. The stuff audit is another.
You're going to have to do it constantly, right? This is, again, I don't know if I mentioned this here, but I talk about it all the time. A business is built in the boring. Business is built in the boring routines, right? I have the same weekly planning routine that I've had for the past 5 years. I have the same end of day process that I've had for the past 5 years. And it works because I'm consistently doing it over and over. I could literally do it in my sleep at this point. But the problem is when you start changing things constantly and you don't do things the same, it gets really difficult to like build those habits and build those things in place. And when it comes to digital clutter, it's the same thing. You have to have a habit to keep up on it and to organize it, declutter, organize, declutter. Like it's this whole process that you have to go through because digital clutter doesn't stop. Your email doesn't stop. People don't stop sending you PDFs and files and images. You sign up for more software. You have more passwords. Like it literally just comes at you 24/7. So you've got to have a process in place that's very consistent to organize it and get rid of it. Because if you don't, I have a system for it and it gets overwhelming sometimes because there's just so much of it. It just never stops.
Yes. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll download stuff just to download it sometimes.
Right.
And then I'm like, what am I doing? Why is this still here? Or I'll like, dig around and find stuff from years ago.
Oh yeah. That's always fun.
I don't know why. It's taking up space. It's slowing down my computer. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really awesome kind of first thing to do is audit first your schedule. Cause of course your most valuable thing is your time. And then audit your workspace. Yeah, your digital workspace. I love the way that you put that, Brittany. It just makes so much sense. And I think it'll go a long way for the burnout.
It really does. I think people come to me and they're like, what is the magic system that's going to change my life? And it's this stuff like this. Yes, I can give you the tools. Yes, I can give you huge strategies. I can give you all these things. But if you can't manage your workspace that you're in day to day, and you can't manage your calendar and the time that you're spending on things, none of the strategies are going to do anything because you don't have the time to implement anything. So, like I said, even my big clients that I work with, like huge clients, they're like, it all comes down to time management, workspace, and task management every single time. And I think you just have to get in the mindset of like, if I take the time to really do a reset, I'm going to have the time to do bigger things once I get that all set up.
I love that. And really be able to like lean into the parts of the business that you love. It's easier to maintain and keep organized when you have a clean workspace. Yes. And designated areas to put everything and designated areas to spend your time. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think an audit's a great place to start. I actually have a resource called the Efficiency Scorecard that I'm going to share in the notes. It's free. And it might help you start looking at some of the more operational tasks that you could implement some systems around and get you started there if you're interested in maybe leaning on technology a little bit, especially if you're solo right now, you're not really looking to hire right away. I think that's going to be a really good exercise. And of course, I'm sure you have tons of resources, Brittany. I know that your community is probably awesome for this and great for accountability. Yeah. I'm going to hop on in there and see what's going on so that I can schedule my weekly time too.
Yes. Actually, if you go over to bcohq.co/resources, there's a digital workspace behind the scenes training. And then I actually have a new private podcast series that we launched that talks all about creating your days by design and a lot of the stuff that we just talked through. So it's actually just b.link/days by design. So I'm sure you'll drop that in the notes. But those are, again, really two places to start is audit your schedule and audit your workspace and get some systems in place. And then we can kind of move forward and do bigger things from there. So
love it. Yes.
Yay.
Yep. It never stops. So maybe we work that in.
It just shifts and changes and pivots. And if you can plan and then pivot and then plan and then pivot and you must master those skills, like you're good.
Yes. You'll start to pick up on the signs. That feeling is going to happen again, but it'll be easier and easier the more, the more you learn how you work best. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for sharing all of the goodness today and coming on.
Absolutely.
Is there any other links that you want to share to your socials?
Yeah. I'm probably on Instagram the most. It's over on our website too, but it's brittanyandco.consulting is our handle over there. I share all things like home life and RV life and all those things too. So that's fun. But yeah, bcohq.co is the best place to kind of like find everything.
Awesome. Well, yes, I will put my resource down in the show notes too. And of course, my website is alinascarcella.com and I am on Instagram as well, mostly. So that's alina.scarcella. And I think that wraps up. All right. Awesome. I will be back with another episode next week. Thank you again, Brittany.